Welcome to the Human Workforce Podcast series. Lachlan, I keep coming back to this image. Somebody opens their laptop on a Tuesday morning, asks an AI to draft 3 client emails, summarize a meeting, and suggest next steps for a project, and before lunch, that person has quietly handed over the first layer of their job.
Yeah, and that's the bit people miss, hey? It's not like a scene from The Terminator where Skynet sends some big robot stomping through reception. It's 3 emails, 1 summary, a tidy little task list. Looks harmless as a gum tree in the backyard. Until you realize the machine isn't just helping with work, it's nudging what counts as work in the first place.
Exactly. And that's what this show is for. We're not here for the doom sermon or the shiny sales pitch version. We're trying to give people a clear-eyed read on generative AI, what patterns are showing up, how they're affecting jobs and daily life, and what that means for the wider economy where these tools are already changing decisions.
Spot on. Practical, not fluffy. Because generative AI isn't only a faster spell checker or a souped-up search bar. More and more, it's getting wedged into the chain of who gets work, how output gets judged, and what bosses decide is valuable. That's a different beast.
Who gets work is the phrase I want to underline. Because once a system can draft, summarize, classify, recommend, and respond, management starts redesigning roles around that capability. Maybe the junior writer does less first draft writing. Maybe the support rep handles only the angry or unusual cases. Maybe the analyst spends less time building the memo and more time checking whether the memo is nonsense.
And that sounds efficient. Sometimes it is efficient, but it sneaks up on you. If the first draft, the rough summary, and the standard customer reply all get done by AI, then the human role shifts upward into review, exception handling, and sign-off, which sounds fancy, but it can also mean there are fewer reps for learning the craft. Bit like hiring a young mechanic and never letting him pull apart an engine because the diagnostic computer already spat out a likely answer.
Wait, fewer reps for learning the craft. That's the line that sticks for me. If the beginner no longer writes the rough draft, fields the simple complaint, or builds the first spreadsheet from scratch, where do they learn judgment? Because most judgment is just scar tissue plus pattern recognition.
Scar tissue is a lovely way to put it. And here's the tension. These shifts are usually quiet. No one sends an email saying, "Good morning, your profession has been structurally altered." Instead, it's, "We've streamlined reporting. We've automated intake. Use the assistant for a first pass." Then 6 months later, half the role is different.
And because each change is incremental, people adapt without naming what they're adapting to. The pace feels ordinary, while the architecture changes underneath them. A recruiter now evaluates candidates with AI-generated notes in the loop. A manager starts judging employees partly by how well they use AI. A customer gets served by a bot first and a person second. The tool becomes a filter.
Though I do want to push one bit there. I don't think every AI layer is automatically bad news. Some old tasks are dead set miserable. If a tool kills off mind-numbing admin, good. No tears from me. The trick is whether we're removing drudge work or quietly stripping out the bits where people build capability and trust.
That's fair. The problem isn't assistance, it's amnesia. If an organization forgets which human skills are being eroded while efficiency goes up, it can wake up leaner, faster, and oddly less capable. And that's where the real story begins.
So if the work is shifting under our feet, what's left that's properly human? I reckon the sturdy stuff now is judgment, context, relationships, and accountability. Not just pumping things out faster. Speed still matters, sure, but speed without judgment is how you end up confidently sending rubbish at scale.
Let me try to explain that back. You're saying the valuable person isn't the one who can produce 10 drafts in an hour. It's the one who can look at draft number 3 and say, this sounds polished, but it's wrong for this client, this moment, and this risk. Is that basically it?
Yeah, that's it. And see how you grabbed this client, this moment, this risk? That's the whole enchilada. Generative AI is pretty handy at plausible language. It can draft a proposal, summarize a meeting, write a customer reply, but plausible isn't the same as appropriate. A support message after a delayed package is one thing. A support message after a billing mistake that hits someone's rent money? Different universe, mate.
Right. Same category, different human stakes. A machine can produce a polite apology, but the person on the receiving end may need reassurance, discretion, maybe even an exception to policy. That's relationship building, not text generation.
And same with analysis. AI can help pull themes from notes or summarize a report fast as anything. But if you're deciding whether to launch a product, cut a team, or enter a market, someone still has to own the call. Own it. That's the key. If the recommendation goes pear-shaped, you can't drag the chatbot into the boardroom and ask it to explain itself. Well, you can, but it'll be a very short meeting.
I've paid to watch that, honestly. But own the call matters. Leadership is not merely selecting from polished options. It's deciding under uncertainty, knowing who gets affected, and carrying the consequence. That's why accountability becomes more valuable as automation spreads, not less.
Customer service is another good everyday one. AI can answer the standard stuff: store hours, password resets, order tracking. Great. But once a case gets messy, emotional, or unusual, the human advantage jumps out. Not because humans are magical, because humans can notice subtext. They can hear, "I'm angry," but also, "I'm embarrassed," or "I'm scared this is my fault."
I think the same thing applies to drafting. If AI gives you a decent first pass, that doesn't eliminate writing as a skill. It changes what good writing means. Good writing becomes partly the ability to shape, challenge, and refine a draft so it actually reflects the truth, the audience, and the intention.
Yeah, less can you type fast, more can you think straight. And for younger workers, that's a weird adjustment. The ladder into a profession may look shorter because AI handles the basic tasks, but the gap between beginner and trusted decision maker can get wider if no one teaches the middle bits.
There's our subtle disagreement from earlier, I think. You sound a touch more optimistic than I am. You see drudge work coming off the plate. I see a risk that people lose the apprenticeship part of work.
A bit of both. I am optimistic, carefully. If leaders use AI to free people for better work, beauty. If they use it to hollow out learning, flatten relationships, and chase efficiency like a dog after a ute, then we've missed the point entirely.
Which leaves us with a very human question. As these systems keep taking on more of the first pass, the drafting, the summarizing, the routine response, the rough analysis, how do people and organizations adapt in a way that preserves judgment, trust, and responsibility instead of automating the meaning out of work?
That's the question to sit with. Thanks for listening, folks.
Until next time, take care and stay human.